Me and Andrea Botez have known each other for a very long time, but we have never played a classical chess tournament game. And so today, it was the first time we were ever going to do this. Now, a few weeks ago, she posted on Twitter that she was absolutely going to destroy me when we played, and I knew this probably wasn't true, but I did feel slightly intimidated and I thought, okay, I need to prove to her that this is wrong, and I also need to prove to everybody that saw this tweet that I can beat her. So, this is my game against Andrea Botez, and this was played in Malibu, California at the Botez Chess Invitational. Andrea,
Anna,
do you feel ready to play against me?
I've been waiting my whole life for this moment.
What do you mean you've been waiting your whole life for this moment?
We were born 6 weeks apart, and I got an extra 6 weeks studying straight out of the womb for this moment.
To begin with, we were born 3 weeks apart.
You just told me 6!
No, 3! We were born the
Whatever,
same
I'm
month,
dyslexic.
Andrea.
Let's play chess.
Okay, first classical game of chess between us. Let's go. So, before the game, we were taking some pictures, and I felt bad about my mom having to sit there and explain to all the viewers what we were doing. But yeah, I guess that's what chess content creators do. But then the game started. We shook hands and we started the clock.
Here they're shaking the hands. Anna is pressing the clock, and let's see.
Now, Andrea started by playing d4, and I had kind of prepared a line against her because I knew that she wanted to Jobava London me, and I absolutely hate to play against that opening. So everything that I wanted was to do something to stop her from playing that opening, because I felt like if Andrea plays her favorite opening, she's gonna play a lot better. So I wanted to do everything in my power to stop that. So instead of playing d5 and allowing her to go bishop f4, which would be the Jobava London, I decided to play e6. So by going e6, now after she goes bishop f4, the idea of the Jobava London is to at some point play knight b5 and threaten on c7. It doesn't really become as big of a threat because I don't have to play d5 over here. And I had actually looked at a line here where I would just simply play bishop b4, and then I would be able to pin the knight, and hence she would not be able to move it, and this would now be a bit of a different opening. So this was the first time that I ever played this, and I really just wanted to be extremely annoying. Like, I knew that Andrea was not happy about me playing this and not entering her Jobava London. Me and Andrea, we were talking last night, and we were saying, oh, let's not prepare together. Let's come up with a deal where we just don't prepare against each other for tomorrow. But we both ended up preparing, so we both broke the deal. But anyways, I ended up playing bishop b4, pinning the knight, and now I thought that she would be very surprised and that she would spend a lot of time thinking here, but actually she didn't really spend that much time at all. She was just thinking for a little bit, and then she played the move e3, which is a very logical move, simply getting her light squared bishop out and opening up for it. Now, after e3, I kind of forgot what I was supposed to do. I thought, okay, maybe I can bring up my knight to the center. I can go knight d5. Maybe I can go b6. Maybe I can go d5. I think I should have done either d5, taking the center now that my bishop is on b4, or I should have gone knight d5 to at least get rid of the bishop, as I'd be both threatening to capture the knight and threaten the bishop. But I didn't play any of those moves, and instead I went for this move b6, which I don't think was that good because I wanted to fianchetto my bishop and get my bishop on that beautiful long diagonal, but she had a move which I completely oversaw, and which at first when I looked at it didn't really look that strong, but then I realized that it actually was quite a good move. So I played b6, and Andrea, just after a little bit of thinking, replied with the move queen f3. And when she did this, I immediately realized, okay, maybe I actually need to think, maybe I'm messing things up. I started feeling a little bit nervous, as if I didn't know the opening. And it felt like Andrea was getting really confident because I think that she thought she had a great position, which b6 was definitely a mistake, so she was right about that. So she played queen f3, she was threatening my rook, and I needed to make a choice. Do I go knight c6 and block the threat, or do I go knight d5? Now, the idea of going knight d5 is that I'm threatening the bishop, and what I didn't like about going knight c6 was the fact that I really didn't like that she would be able to move her bishop and pin my knight. So I ended up moving my knight so that she would not be able to pin it. So on knight d5, I really wanted to get rid of that bishop as well. And then after I went there, she spent a little bit of time thinking, and she ended up going a3, threatening my bishop. Now, if I move my bishop anywhere else, she is going to be picking up my knight, so I need to capture her knight. And now I felt like, okay, at least her pawn structure is going to be pretty bad. Like, this could be a long-term advantage for me. I was feeling quite good about that. So, I mean, we were both spending not a lot of time, but we were definitely being very slow. And I kept saying that me and Andrea were some of the slowest players in this tournament, and our game is probably going to last so long just because of how slow we are. But yeah, I ended up capturing the knight. She took back, and then I went knight c6 just so that the pin would be gone, and then she played e4, threatening my knight. So now I had to take the bishop, I had to trade, because that bishop would otherwise be too strong, and after the queen took, I had to make a choice. I knew that my idea a lot of times could be to push up my e-pawn one step, sacrificing a pawn, just because if she takes it, I can move my queen to e7, threaten that pawn, and then maybe be able to play queen f4. So I was looking at these ideas, but I ended up not doing it here because I felt like it was a little bit too early to play that. And I realized that I wanted to castle before. I wanted to bring my king to safety. So I spent some time thinking here, and with some time, I mean quite a lot of time. But ultimately, I told myself, Anna, you gotta make a move. You gotta make a decision. You can't just sit and think the whole time. So I ended up finally castling. But I was not happy about the fact that I had already spent 30 minutes on just some moves. And after this, I took a sip of my drink. I always do this. After I make a big decision, I take a sip of my drink. Maybe I'll put on some lipstick. Maybe I'll go to the bathroom. It's like a whole ritual. But yeah, I wasn't happy about my position at this point, and I felt like my opening had gone a little bit wrong, which, yeah, the eval bar doesn't say that it's that wrong, but I just didn't like the fact that she had a lot of center. So here I was sure that she was going to play either knight f3 or bishop d3. I was sure she's going to bring out her knight or her bishop, but she ended up actually doing a move that I wasn't expecting at all, which I was very happy about, which was bishop b5. And I was so happy that she put her bishop there because the bishop was actually not really doing much there. If she would have gone bishop d3, it would have been a lot more scary because that bishop would have been pointing at my king. But on b5, it's not pointing towards anything. It's pointing towards my knight, which she's very welcome to take, which is why I simply moved up my bishop one step, defending the knight, and telling, you know, Andrea, I was able to get out my bishop for free. Like, if you want to pick up my knight, you can pick up my knight, but then I'll have a bishop, and I'll be very happy about that. And right now, I'm preparing to play f5 or e5 or maybe d5, but I'm preparing some pawn break in the center. So even though right now it looks like she has a lot of center, I am trying to prepare a pawn break. So here I was starting to feel a lot better when she played bishop b5, and I immediately realized that my idea would be to play f5. That was what I thought was the next move, because I realized that if I play f5 and she picks up my pawn, I will go rook takes f5, and then she will lose a piece because both her queen and her bishop will be hanging. So I kept that idea in my mind. Andrea spent some time thinking here, but ultimately she ended up bringing out her knight, just developing it, and she went to e2 with it. And this was the moment where at first I was like, okay, Anna, we gotta hold our horses. Like, you know you want to play f5, but we should think a little bit, because I was kind of considering if I should play e5 somehow, but I don't really know why I spent 10 minutes thinking here, because truly everything that I wanted was to play f5. There were also ideas of playing knight d7 or c5, but after thinking for a while, I mean, Andrea wanted to go out, but then I think she realized that I was going to make a move. I always look so indecisive, but but yeah. After thinking for like 10 minutes, I ended up playing the move f5. And I was really happy when I finally played this, because I finally felt like, okay, I am able right now to get a position which doesn't look so good for her. Because before, I kind of knew that her position wasn't that good for her, but it annoyed me that it seemed to the eye that she had a great position, because she had the center and she had a lot more activity than I did. But now with my pawn on f5, maybe that's a stupid way of thinking about it. Let me know in the comments if you do the same. But when I put my pawn on f5, it felt like finally my position visually also looked good, which I was really happy about. So she spent a lot of time thinking here, and I thought that she was, well, I wasn't really sure exactly what she was going to do. At first, I was sure that she was just going to push up her pawn one step. She couldn't take on f5 because then there's rook takes f5, and then I'm winning the bishop. But then after thinking for quite a long time, she ended up actually just simply castling, which I was really shocked about because I felt like there have to be tactics in this position. I mean, I have a bishop pointing towards the king, my rook is active, I have a pawn on f5. So I was looking at so many different moves and I was going crazy in my calculations. And I actually spent here like 20 minutes calculating. It was insane. I was looking at so many crazy lines, which you can take a moment here to pause the video and try to think about them too. But I was looking at so many crazy lines. But ultimately, I thought, okay, let me just play knight d7 because I was expecting her to push up her pawn, and then I thought I'd get some good squares for the knight, and then I'd start an attack on the king. Now, I actually missed that there's a really beautiful combination here where I win a pawn, which is with f takes e4, queen takes e4, I have knight takes d4, sacrificing my knight, but with the idea that after the queen takes the knight, I mean, this is really crazy, but after, there's queen g5. There was something crazy like this, but I didn't see this during the game at all, and I wasn't looking at that. So I played 97, which was a fine move. It wasn't the best because I did have a winning tactic there, but it didn't really matter. So I played 97, and then after this, she spent a lot of time thinking, and I was sure that she was going to push up the pawn, and I was just kind of calculating because I'd spent a lot of time. I only had 30 minutes for like a lot more moves that I had to do. But then she did the shocking move of capturing my pawn on f5, and this was something that I wasn't expecting whatsoever because now I was winning a piece. So I was able to win a piece against Andrea just after around like, yeah, just like right after the opening, and I could tell that she was really upset about this, of course. But yeah, I was reminded of the fact that a few days ago I played against Dina and I won a piece in that game and I didn't win that game. I ended up drawing. So I knew that I had to keep on playing well all the way until the end, even if I was a piece up. But at this moment, I knew that I had a winning position. So it was only about surviving and just getting the win. So now a new kind of phase entered in the game where I knew that I was winning, and Andrea started pushing up her pawns. She went g4, she went f4, because she just really needed to create something big. I mean, this is kind of like in a football match when all of a sudden it's minute 87 and you're losing and you need to win the game. What do? Well, you bring all your players to the other side of the football pit, right? Because you need to have all your players ready to score. And it's kind of the same here. So she was pushing all her pawns because she was trying to do something against my king, which is totally the right way of fighting. And Andrea kept the fighting spirit like all the way. So I wanted to make sure that I found a good way of coming up with a plan, and I quickly realized that a good way could be to play queen f8, to later go queen d6 and queen c6, and then get my queen and bishop on the same diagonal to get a big battery set up. So at this point, I think that Andrea, well, I guess she didn't really exactly know what to do because she had to defend a lot of different threats. And so she, I think, started maybe playing a little bit more passive, which makes a lot of sense considering the position. So after I went queen f8, she played rook f2. And then I went queen d6, trying to prepare for this idea. She played queen d3, threatening my rook. I moved my queen to defend my rook and also threaten checkmate. And after she went knight g3, I had this tactic of being able to capture on f4, but I didn't really want to do it. The idea is that the rook cannot take because it's checkmate, but I didn't really want to do it because I didn't like the fact that she would get so much activity on that f file after, which objectively maybe I should have just taken the pawn, but I just kind of felt like I didn't want to give her any activity. So instead, I was just trying to play really calmly. I played rook a5, preparing bishop a6, putting that bishop on the diagonal. Andrea moved her queen, and now it was time for me to come up with a big attacking plan, and I ended up just simply playing knight h4 to threaten to go knight f3 check and then bishop a6. So I was starting to try to checkmate her, but we both had only 12 minutes left. And I mean, I was a piece up, but I really needed to make sure that I didn't get into crazy time trouble, which, spoiler alert, I was about to do. So we started shuffling pieces a little bit. She was just trying to stop all my threats, so she went king f1. I spent a lot of time thinking here, trying to come up with a checkmate basically, but I ultimately couldn't really find anything. So I simply checked her, kind of reshuffled my pieces, and then after this, I decided to play rook f8. So we ended up having a similar position where my queen was on d5, and then I put in the last piece that wasn't working into the game, which was my rook that was on a8. That's what they say, right? You want to bring all the pieces to the attack. So I, at one point, just didn't really know exactly what to do. Obviously, I could trade queens, but I really wanted to checkmate her. So I found this idea of playing e5, which is kind of a crazy move. But the idea is just that I'm really opening up the position and she cannot really capture that pawn because I have all kinds of threats with knight d2 check, or queen h1, etc. So she cannot really take the pawn. So I wanted to open up the position where her king was so vulnerable, but this also meant that now my knight on h4 could get into a little bit of a trickier situation. So she pushed her pawn to f5. Now I realized that the knight would never be able to retreat. I captured on d5, on d4. She captured back, and now we had a more open position. I ended up moving the knight to h4 back because I wanted to threaten queen h1 check. And actually, I was really surprised when Andrea didn't really defend from queen h1. She just played rook c1. And I realized that the idea of this was that she wanted to be able to play c4 after my checks. I mean, we both had like a minute here. I was really stressed. I was feeling like, okay, Anna, like you are high on adrenaline right now. Like you gotta play really fast. I ended up checking. I was trying to make sure to not blunder. I was having nightmares of my game against Dina. But I was really just trying to play solidly. And at one point after checks and c4, I realized, you know what, Anna, you got to bring your queen back. I don't want my queen to be out there. I wanted to bring it back to make sure that I didn't lose anything because there were certain moments I could even play something like, because my king is so exposed, I could blunder a piece with a check when I was so low on time. I only had a minute on the clock. But then when I was finally able to play this move d5, I realized that I had consolidated everything. There were no checks. I didn't know exactly what she was going to do. She only had 26 seconds left. She moved back her queen. I checked her. She moved her king. And after this, I went queen f6 to defend my knight, kind of asking her what she should do. She only had 30 seconds on the clock here. I was threatening all kinds of crazy checks. I was threatening the pawn on d4. I was threatening rook e8 check. This was a really bad situation for her to be in. I'm completely winning in this position. She didn't really know exactly what to do. Her time was ticking down. I briefly looked at her clock to see how many seconds she had left. And then I realized 2, 1, 0. Andrea had lost on time. Her time had ticked down all the way to 0 and she had therefore flagged. So I won my classical chess game against Andrea, which I was obviously really happy about. But I think that for Andrea it was kind of sad because she just lost a piece in the opening. But I do have to give big props to her for fighting all the way until the end. And she definitely put me in a stressful situation when I was so low on time. It ended up becoming a bullet game. So overall, I was really happy with the game. But yeah, I don't think Andrea was, but I'm sure we'll get a rematch in the future, which I would love, or maybe we'll get like a bullet rematch or something. But this is my game against Andrea. She said on Twitter last week that she was gonna destroy me in classical chess. I'm happy that I proved her wrong, but it was like always really fun to play her. I was scared that we weren't gonna be friends after this, but we're still friends, so that makes me really happy. She went on a hike in the mountains. She said that she was gonna quit chess, but I think she's back now and she's happier, so I hope that's the case. Anyways, I am going to be preparing now for my next game because I am facing a girl that has been 2 times US Women's Champion, Jennifer Ju. So I gotta be very well prepared for that. But I hope that you enjoyed this little new format of doing chess recaps. And if you did, let me know in the comments and I'll do more of my tournament recaps just like this. Thank you so much for watching the video and I'll see you all in the next one.